In this episode, me and my dad are going to review these study Bibles. We know that making Bibles or anything is very hard, and we respect people who do it, even if we do have a few notes. Thank you.
Hey everybody, I'm Matt. Thanks for hanging out with me on my YouTube channel. This is my son, and in this video, we're going to review not all of these study Bibles. I think we're only going to get to this stack in this video, and then we'll do a follow-up video where we get to this stack because there's some spicy things over here. They're going to take a little extra time when we get down into this region right here. Here's what I'm going for. Throughout the course of the year, I work on Bible stuff, and I'm fascinated by Bibles and the thinking that goes into publishing them and how to present them. And so I always got my antenna out for study Bibles, more academically oriented Bibles that are interesting to me in some way or another. And when I see an interesting one, I grab it. And then in the course of my daily work, for a few days, I use it in anticipation of having this conversation with you at the end of the year. Now, I figure if you're watching this, it's probably because you're thinking about buying a new study Bible, or you're thinking about giving one to somebody you know, or maybe you just want to keep your finger on the pulse of what's going on in the world of Bible publishing and Christianity in general. Any of those reasons, that's awesome. And I'm hoping that this video will help answer some of the questions you have about these without you having to buy them. Now, most of these I just saw somewhere, they looked interesting, so I bought them. Surely something in this stack has been sent to me either by one of you who enjoyed something, you sent it my way. That happens from time to time. Thank you for that, by the way. Not everything that gets sent to me ends up making it into this particular video, but maybe next year. I think a couple of these were sent to me by a publisher as well. We don't got any kind of sweetheart deal or anything. I am your advocate here, so I'm just going to tell you what I honestly think, maybe at times mildly uncomfortably. But here's the thing, disclaimer before we get into it, making Bibles or anything is super hard, like the boy was saying up front. And I don't own the Bible. I'm not in charge of this. I'm not fit to say exactly how everything ought to be. So I'm going to give you my honest take and my read on things. Ultimately, you're smart. You know what to do with stuff. Even if you totally disagree with my take, hopefully the video will be useful enough for you to have a sense of what's going on in a given edition and decide what you want to do with it. So here's what we're going to look at as we go through these. Instead of a simple thumbs up, thumbs down, good Bible, bad Bible, instead, what I want to consider is what are these Bibles going for, and then how well do they do it? So I got a bunch of little sliders that I've made up that cover the following spectrums of what are Bibles going for. Question number one, the purpose. Is it trying to be more academic, or is it trying to be more devotional in nature? Slider number two, nudge factor. Is it really trying to spell out how to read this particular part of the text, or is it sprinkling along a bunch of little breadcrumbs to give you the tools you need to go and figure it out for yourself? Spectrum number three, targeting. Is it meant for just whoever might be interested in the Bible, or is it targeted toward a very specific demographic group, like this Courage for Life Study Bible for Men? It has men in the name, so that's kind of the hint that I'm looking at. Then topicality. Is a given Bible meant to address a specific question? Does it have the antenna out for one particular thing, like the nature of God, church history, biblical archaeology, Reformation values, Catholic ideas? Or is it kind of a general purpose study Bible just meant to give you the obvious notes on each text to help you get deeper into it? Next spectrum is bias. Some of these are going for more of a neutral read. Almost everything on the desk is lightly to somewhat significantly Protestant, evangelical-ish in its foundational assumption. But a lot of those groups will tend to try to give you a pretty flat read on what's going on there. Some of those other Bibles are going to push pretty hard toward no, this is a theological perspective we're offering these notes from. These two Bibles, I would expect, are probably going to lean the hardest that way. Like I said, when we get to these in the next video, it gets a little bit spicy, so we'll look forward to waiting to see how that plays out. Next spectrum, portability. Some of these are really big and hard to carry around. Some of them are littler and easier to carry around, and the weight of the pages has a lot to do with it, so it's not immediately evident from the size. To address that problem, we have brought along a tool. The lad here is going to be in charge of weighing the Bibles so that you know how much you're committing to in terms of physical output when you carry this around for your whole life as opposed to this. You get a big giant Bible and carry it around for 40 years versus a little light one. I mean, that's tons and tons of weight difference between the two over that much time. It's a very important detail. We're going to nail it. Up front, what do you think is going to be the heaviest one?
I think this one, the Catholic one.
Bold choice. I'm going to go with this one. We'll see what checks out as we go along. Okay, finally, the question of presentation. Some of these Bibles are making much more of an effort outside and or even inside to add a lot of flair and flourish and colorful wayfinding. Others of these are trying to be very practical and pragmatic, and we'll try to evaluate what they're going for on that spectrum as well. And then finally, we'll just do a simple 1 to 10 scale in terms of the concept of the Bible, the execution of the notes and the resources, the general presentation of the Bible, and then I'll make up some arbitrary number for what I think is my final grade on this. Again, as much as anything, that's just me having fun. You take that with a grain of salt and do what you want with it. Do what your eyes tell you. All right, so the plan is, once again, we're going to get through this stack right now. Then in the next video, we're going to get through this stack where things get a little bit lively and we run into a bit of surprise that if you want to know where that goes, you'll just have to watch the next video. All right, let's review some Bibles. Study Bible number 1 is the Chronological Life Application Study Bible by Tyndale. This is the New Living Translation. I know some of the people who worked on this. I trust the scholarship behind it. It's super readable. This is one of my 3 favorite translations. And this is the chronological version of the flagship product of Tyndale, the Life Application Study Bible, which you have there, right? Here, let me trade you. Take that out of the box for me, pal. The Life Application Study Bible is wildly popular, and on the purpose slider scale, it edges toward devotional. I mean, it says Life Application right there in the name. And so for me, this has not always scratched the itch of my curiosity for why I get a study Bible, but I can see why it's super popular and why tons of people have appreciated it and benefited from it. That said, I really, really like this Chronological Life Application Study Bible, and this is one that at some point I might just read end to end as a chronological read through of the Bible. The normal arrangement of books of the Bible obviously isn't evident here. They just grab all the parts from all the different parts of the Bible and they try to just put them together as best as they can in the actual order that things happened. So you lose some of the continuity. I mean, there's no way to keep from losing some of the continuity that you're going to get with a traditionally ordered Bible from a theological, thematic perspective, but you gain a bunch of continuity narrative-wise. And so what they were trying to do with this Bible is give you the best of both worlds. I think they did a really good job, better than I've ever seen with any chronological Bible. The wayfinding in this Bible is phenomenal. By wayfinding, I mean the color coding, the organizing, the conscious stuff that you'll catch, the subconscious stuff that you'll intuit that helps you stay oriented in where you are in the story and how it all fits together, literally, figuratively, thematically, chronologically. And I think Tyndale is so far ahead of the curve on this in terms of all of these Bible publishers. Nobody does wayfinding as well as them. And every little flourish, it doesn't matter where you turn, the color, the font, it will be right. That is, it will correspond to every other place that same thing, that same genus or class or species of idea or category. It'll always be the same throughout. And so you'll get done with one of these recently developed Tyndale Bibles, and you will feel a mental map of the Bible that just wouldn't be as obvious or wouldn't be as present without really thoughtful artistic work in making the wayfinding element of this come together. That said, that's a really big Bible with all those resources. You're in charge of weighing it. What do we got?
See.
Oh, I can't see it from there. We got to move back a little bit. What is that?
I think it's
3 pounds, 12 ounces. That's a lot of Bible. So, I mean, if you're looking to shed a couple pounds, get a little bit ripped, maybe a little bit going in the shoulders, they'll pop on the delts or something. This might be a good option, but know that you are in for a commitment. Good stuff, Tyndale. Next up is another one by Tyndale and another one in the New Living Translation. This is the Courage for Life Study Bible for Men. It has lions all over it. I like lions. I'm a man. Let's put it in the hands of an aspiring man. There you go, young man. What do you make of that? Just tell me what you see.
Awesome lion.
Okay. Here, talk a little louder so I can hear you.
An awesome lion, then Proverbs 28:1.
Okay.
Everything has blue stitching.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
And then it says, the wicked run away when no one is chasing them, but the godly are as bold as lions.
Yeah. So, I mean, you like it? Is it the kind of thing that you would be into?
Yes.
Okay. So, I mean, they know their audience. Props on that. I like the artistic effort and energy that they put into it. You flip the thing open and what you discover pretty quickly with this one, sorry, scale, is that each page has its own little devotional / study guide. It's right in between. This isn't a Bible that is designed, at least on the page, to be a super deep divey study Bible. There are lots of resources that you won't see in print. More on that in a minute. What you will see is this little really fourfold guide that goes along with each page of the Bible. And that's tough to pull off because they're meant to correspond to what's on the page. So it's like, here's how I would do things. Well, I can only do one page today. I got to do 10 push-ups and I got to do this other stuff. I got to take my vitamins. I got to read one page of the Bible. If you do that, on every page, you will get something to reflect on in sort of this fourfold approach. Pray. They say observe, but it's kind of like, look at the raw materials of the text, interpret the text, and then apply the text. It's an age-old approach to Bible study, and it's good. I read several of these. They did a really good job of making them correspond to what is going on the page. Some of these pages don't lend themselves to that as much, and so some of these are going to be a little bit of a stretch, but I think all in all, that's fine. The thing about resources with this Bible, though, is that it's got the filament system that Tyndale does, where you can point a phone at the page number, and there's a little app that goes along with it, and you get a whole bunch of the resources from the Life Application Study Bible. And so really, if you wanted to use this with your phone as a companion, this would also serve as a very robust study Bible, but it's not on the page. Again, it's very, very catered to a certain demographic. You can start weighing that. And those usually aren't personally my favorite thing, but this is pretty cool. And it's only 2 pounds and 15 ounces. So, I mean, I kind of expect it to be bigger and heavier so that you can get masculine cred for dragging around a giant Bible. But it's sleek, it's manageable, it looks cool, and I don't know how to close the box. All right, this one's interesting. This is the New Inductive Study Bible. It's an NASB, New American Standard Bible, that errs more toward the side of, as much as it's possible, sort of literal interpretation in the approach to translation, and it's by Harvest House. But the interesting thing here is that this edition is reflective of a certain philosophy of biblical interpretation, one that I think makes quite a bit of sense. The inductive method says that you go to the text for what it is, and you really work through it and try to understand what it's doing, and then you take from that the obvious truths that flow out of it. That approach and the popularization of this term inductive was meant to be a corrective, a pushback on what the people behind this would call deductive interpretation. That's where you have an idea already about how things are and how God is and what the Bible must mean, and you go and find verses to fit that and make it happen. Well, of those two options, obviously the inductive thing is going to be better. It's going to get you closer to understanding what's going on. That said, there's a specific technique that goes along with this, and the technique can be pretty overwhelming to people. The first 30 pages or so of this edition are dedicated to that technique. Look at this, buddy. Look at all the signs and markings that are intended to be used to mark up the Bible. And you got these specific ways to categorize and organize your thoughts and take notes. And look at this. Look at the way they mark up a page. I mean, it's overwhelming to me. It makes me feel like I felt in 8th grade when they made us diagram sentences, and I still don't think I actually understood what we were doing there. For some people, like I was saying, it's just going to be a perfect lock and key fit. That's how my brain works. I can now make sense of the Bible. I can break it down into its elemental components and extract from it the truth better than I could otherwise. For me, it does not have that effect. I think the whole inductive approach to the Bible is just sort of intuitive. But to me, too much of this can get you away from reading it for what it is, which is narrative or poetry. And dude, I just got a yawn out of you. I'm so sorry. You're fine. A really good sport to sit here and look at Bibles with me, even though you were a little bit tired. Thanks, pal. So that is what this approach does to me. It makes me want to sleep. And it isn't how I think about any kind of literature, even though I can totally see why it would be useful. But here's the thing. When you actually go through this Bible, and this looks like a Bible, what is the biggest thing, buddy, that you notice that is different from this Bible versus normal Bibles, other Bibles you have?
This line of...
Okay, so it has cross references. Yeah, I agree. What do you make of the headings for the chapters?
Oh, it says chapter 13 theme.
So it's not there. So how are you supposed to know what the theme is of a given chapter?
I think they're supposed to have you write it.
Okay.
Right?
So you got to read it and you got to do the work yourself. I like that. I think that's cool because a lot of times those chapter headings, I mean, those aren't from God. Christians don't believe that. Those can cheat. Those can skew your honest read on the text. Those divisions aren't necessarily in natural places. Nobody believes those divisions are ordained. And so I like the way that this Bible very subtly just calls that into question simply by leaving a line there that you need to fill in for yourself. So I think it's cool. I see what it's going for. I'm not prepared to vouch for that approach to marking up your Bible, but I could see how it could be helpful for some. And if you're into this kind of study, maybe if you were part of a campus ministry that did this, or if you just want to try this out, hey, this Bible is built to help you come at it that way. Last question, what does it weigh?
I have a feeling it's going to be heavy.
Whew. This is one of those that I came across in the wild and I had to know what was going on with it. This is Crossway's Global Study Bible. This is another one of the 3 translations I really like. This is the English Standard Version. And I just had no idea what to expect when I saw this. Are we going to do a thing that is just chock full of articles about Christianity from different perspectives? Are the notes going to be like, oh, well, people from sub-Saharan Africa tend to read this passage this way, but people from Eastern Europe tend to read this same passage the other way? I thought that'd be interesting, like some kind of comparative thing. But then as I got into it, what I figured out is it's a simplification of the larger ESV study Bible. There's already a concise, There's already a concise ESV study Bible, and it looks like there's quite a bit of overlap in terms of what's going on note-wise. But what I notice is the big difference between this concise ESV study Bible and the global study Bible is that while this one is still of fine quality, it's clearly built to be cheaper to print, cheaper to distribute, and therefore easier to get into the hands of people all around the world. Whereas you got to have a couple bucks to buy something like this that's really printed with very high quality. So I dig into this a little bit more. My next question is, all right, so, okay, it's a study Bible. It's meant for Christians all around the world. I wonder who contributed to it. So you got to dig through the front end when you're trying to figure that out. And this is what I see. Really cool. The contributors are from the United States, Singapore, India, Sri Lanka, Singapore, Indonesia, South Korea, Kenya, Singapore, Zambia, the United States, Jamaica, Japan, Nigeria. Well, no, that's pretty cool. So you're hearing from Bible scholars from all around the world, from different contexts in terms of historical orthodox expressions of biblical faith. And so it is a little bit that thing that I thought it might be right out of the gate. But honestly, the articles are pretty few and far between. For the most part, what you're getting is a very simple take on the notes from the great big grandiose ESV study Bible, which is the flagship product of Crossway. And ultimately, I find the amount of notes to be pretty satisfying. I mean, this is more than good enough to give me a sense of what's going on in the text. But more than that, I love the idea that instead of trying to make something more and more and more premium to try to win the premium market, why not make something with people in view who don't have as many resources, but would really like quality stuff, quality resources that they can carry around in one volume? I've traveled to different parts of the world and met with pastors and worked on things like this. And the hunger for just simple access to reliable, good biblical resources is something that I did not see coming. And I think this is going to scratch that itch. And I really salute Crossway for making this happen. And hey, if you went out, even in a very American setting, and grabbed this, it's going to, one, help you see the text through the lenses of Christians in other parts of the world. And two, it's just a good study Bible that's downright useful for whoever you are. Global Study Bible. Cool idea. Oh, that was like my I'm going to wrap it up thing, but you have a job. So I'm not wrapping it up. Don't go anywhere. That's 2 pounds and change. Now you know. All right, this one's tricky. It doesn't mean bad. It doesn't mean negative. It's tricky. Crossway, who has the English Standard Version, has published this Systematic Theology Study Bible. Now, Crossway tends to cater to a pretty strongly Reformed theology crowd. And so I saw the title of this, knowing who published it, and thought, well, I mean, should you maybe just call it a Reformed Theology Study Bible? And by calling it systematic theology, it feels like you're making a very universal claim to say this is just what the Bible obviously says about theology. Like, well, challenge accepted. I want to know how that works and what they did with it and how much they overstep and how much this is going to irritate everybody. So I grabbed it, and I was using this when I was working on Ezra and Nehemiah, which I guess I'm still working on. I even know where it is in the Bible. I'm just distracted. And there really wasn't much in the way of resources here in terms of systematic theology. In Ezra, I saw an article on worship. Okay, I get why that would be in there with the rebuilding of the temple. One on disobedience toward the end of Ezra, which, I mean, I see why that would be in there. Nehemiah had an article on scripture and something else. And then in Esther, there's one about the sovereignty of God. I read it. It was like, well, yeah, I mean, that's pretty much just biblical theology from Esther and from the rest of the Bible. Something about deliverance, in terms of how things work out between Mordecai and Esther and Xerxes and Haman and how it all comes together. So when I was actually using this Bible, I was like, well, that's kind of innocuous. I mean, it's almost just not even noticeable. I mean, it was almost the same functionally for me just using a plain text Bible as I was working on Nehemiah and Esther as it would have been using this. There's just some articles there that said kind of obvious things. And that's great. That's fine. But not enough to get me to buy it. Not enough to get me to be mad. So then after the fact, I was like, all right, well, let's just go see what happens in Ephesians 1, because that is a part of the Bible that people sometimes disagree about and get mad about, which is so funny because in Ephesians 1, the whole tone that Paul, the author of Ephesians, is taking is like, God is so glorious. It's so amazing that he ordained in advance that the predestination is a thing. And all of this is to the praise of his glory, and grace is amazing. And look at what he's done. I mean, it's just so gushingly celebratory, excited. I mean, this is what we're talking about in church right now. I mean, right? Wouldn't you agree? Paul seems really happy the whole time, right?
Yes.
Okay, fair enough. But people tend to fight about Ephesians 1 because there's stuff about predestination in there. So I go and I look. Sure enough, we get an article. I knew they couldn't not. Election and adoption, Ephesians 1, 3-6. Our Heavenly Father is praiseworthy for granting us all spiritual blessings, especially salvation. Yeah, I think Christians think that. Which he ordained before creation. Okay, well, it's kind of in the text. You might want to caveat it a little bit, but yes, that's good. He who works all things according to the counsel of his will, verse 11, chose us in Christ, verse 3, that is with a plan to join us spiritually to him by faith, his love and will, rather than anything in us, determined by his choice, and the goals of his election are final sanctification and adoption. By grace, God the Father brings into his family believers in his Son because he sent Christ as Redeemer to deliver us from bondage and make us the Father's children. We enjoy being God's children now as we await final adoption. All right, like straight up, that's on the pages of a Bible. And I know right now there are a bunch of you who are watching that and you were like, yes, obviously, that's what the text says. It's awesome. But I also know there are others of you who equally love and study and care about the text who are like, yeah, I might push back on one or two of those turns of phrases here or there. So my point is not that's a good article or a bad article. I mean, mostly that's just biblical, historical Christianity with a couple of aforementioned turns of phrases that one might want to caveat differently. But my point isn't, are the articles great or not? My point is, this is a big swing, and I'm not sure there's enough happening resource-wise in the text to really justify taking the big swing. I'm not sure this is a good idea strategically, but each publisher knows who they're publishing to. They know their base, and I guess my critique of this Bible would be, does it know what it is? Yeah, it does. It is a systematic theology Bible that leans a certain direction interpretively. Does it execute it well? No. I think it's trying to shoot the middle enough and be safe enough that it isn't going to help a reformed-minded Christian go much deeper into the text than where they've already gone. And it's not going to push someone from a different perspective enough to really think it through. I'm not sure this does enough to justify its own existence. I think you might be ahead with the plain text Bible. Nothing personal to people who like it. How much does it weigh? I can't. That's a little heavier than I would have guessed. All right, next up. We're moving over here to this other pile, but before we do, you were starting to tell me something about this Bible that you saw.
Yes. I think that's a mustard seed tree, and then it's all mustard.
Hey. Yeah, the Dwight Schrute shirt color. I like it. Nice catch. Okay. Yeah, that's one thematic artistic presentation point for the Systematic Theology Study Bible. That's why I bring him along. Good catch. Nice job. You just jump in with anything like that whenever you want. This is the Experiencing God Bible. It doesn't say overtly Study Bible on it. So this is probably the closest to the fringes of the category we're reviewing, but I got curious about it. I picked it up. I came in with some negative assumptions. I came away with more positive assumptions. So I decided to roll it in here and do it. This is a Christian Standard Bible, CSB. I don't know a ton about the background of this translation. I've found it to be reliable and good when I've used it. This is by Holman Publishers. So I cracked the thing open expecting to get something a little more wishy-washy, something that doesn't provide a ton of value, but just has some maybe light, squishy meditations woven in here and there. But right off the bat, I know these are pretty solid resources, and they all have these little boxes that say literally, do you notice? And the boxes raise really interesting questions that, again, they kind of breadcrumb you out to be like, did you catch that? Might be worth looking into that more. And I appreciate that, because this is an invitation to discovery more than a dictation of here is what experiencing God looks like. A, B, C, we're going to quantify it for you. And an even more subtle example of the way this is more of a breadcrumb Bible to get you curious and get you digging for yourself is that it's just littered with all of these little icons. Do you see those, pal?
Yeah.
What does that look like?
U-turn sign.
Sure. What is this?
A sword.
I see that the same way.
An arrow with a little cross in it.
Okay. Wow. How did you see that cross? My goodness. Young eyes. Impressive.
Then a heart.
That one I got too. And then that looks like mammoth teeth. 10 Commandments. I see that now that you mention it. And so that made me curious. I go back to the beginning. I'm like, all right, what are these little icons that they're just putting right in the text? Just little circles, text size circles. And I find the code. Okay, the arrow, God works. The heart, love relationship. There's a little email kind of symbol, invitation, the 10 Commandments, God speaks, and on through, etc. And so it looks like what they're trying to do is to demonstrate that all these little passages and movements and all the different genres of the Bible are all somehow reflective of aspects of, I don't want to say the cycle, but the rhythm of actually experiencing relationship with God in the real world. And one of the weaknesses, I think, of being into the kind of stuff that I'm into, study Bibles and all of this business, is that while the academic is super important as part of the deal and breaking it down and understanding it, that's awesome. Like still, what we're breaking down and understanding communicates that God is our Father and that we're sons and daughters of the King and that there's an actual relationship here and that it's meaningful and that things happen in it. And so I just love that built into the text are all of these little reminders that even if you don't stop and say, oh yeah, that heart totally does. And you're right, that verse completely says it. I'm not always satisfied that each place the icon appears perfectly. Smoking gun has a text right next to it that 10 out of 10 knocks it out of the park and is an epiphany every time. It's not like that, but sometimes it is. And more so, it's just a constant reminder that, hey, like all of this stuff is revealing things about God and what it's like to be in a relationship with God and the attributes of God and the work of God. And I like that as an orienting point of emphasis. It's just woven into the text. I think this could be a really good one to pick up and simply read through beginning to end one time with maybe a little different set of antenna out. So I like this one. I thought it was worth weighing. Ooh, that's husky. You got 3.76 there? Oh, that's more Bible than I expected. All right, Experiencing God Bible. Rock and roll, buddy. Look at that. We were going to try to get one stack done, and we got one stack plus one bonus Bible. I think that's a gigantic win. Way to go for the fist bump instead of high-fiving my fist bump like you did on the last take. Okay. The reason we need more time for these remaining 5 Bibles is because it does get pretty interesting right here. I had a thing I wanted to accomplish with the Bibles that I picked. Then when I actually got into it and started looking, I realized that one of these Bibles was the wrong Bible to pick, and I super do not recommend it. We're going to talk about which of these Bibles I really, really don't like and don't recommend next time around, but I think there'll be a silver lining on it, and we'll still all get to go home feeling good, but in the meantime, tension. If you want to see that next video, I would be grateful if you'd consider subscribing and hitting the little notification bell so that you will be notified when that comes out. If not, no problem whatsoever. Next time around, we're going to get to that stack, and we'll just pick up right where we left off then. All right, cool. I'm Matt. That's my kid. Thanks for hanging out with me on my YouTube channel. Let's do this again soon.